Hi, I'm Martin Hodson, General Director of the Baptist Union of Scotland, and I'd like to invite you to Canopy, our national gathering for people from Baptist churches in Scotland that's happening from the 23rd to the 25th of October. It will be a weekend of worship, scripture, inspiration, prayer, stories and challenge. And the great thing is, because it's online, it's equally accessible for everyone in the country, wherever you are, north, south, east, west, or tucked in the central belt. There are some great speakers coming along, including the author and church leader John Mark Comer. Rebecca McLaughlin will be leading a seminar. She's recently written an excellent book on apologetics called Confronting Christianity. Brian Sanders, who leads the underground network of microchurches, will be there. And also Ruth Rice, who's done some very important work on local churches responding to mental health issues. So a great bunch of people will be there. It begins with a national prayer gathering on Friday the 23rd, that evening. And then on Saturday morning, we'll be looking at what God might be saying to us about the kind of churches we need to be as we emerge from this pandemic. There'll be a program for children and young people. And on Sunday morning, there will be a 1 hour gathering with worship and prayer and Bible teaching. And this, get this, I hope that you will adopt that as your worship for your church that Sunday morning. You'll simply be able to get the whole package from Canopy to do that. If that's too much for you, you'll also be able to take a 35-minute slot that will include the speaker and some prayers and other items that you could integrate into your own Sunday program that day. I really hope you'll join us. The best way to take part will be to get 1 or 2 friends in your home and have some food and watch and participate in the sessions together, bearing in mind all the relevant guidelines, of course. And just one thing about the cost. There will be no cost to individuals taking part, so everyone in your whole church can come without paying, but we are asking that local churches will make a donation of £120 if you can do that. Now, if in previous years you've sent 2 delegates to the Baptist Assembly, that will have cost you more than that. And this year, there's a chance for every single person in your church to join in with Canopy. And also, of course, you get a complete morning service thrown in as well. So I hope you'll do that. There'll be 1 or 2 churches that can't afford to do that, and we understand that, and that will be no problem. And your congregation will, of course, all be able to come free of charge anyway. By sharing together, we'll be able to do this thing. So please come and join us for Canopy, 23rd to the 25th of October, online.
Well, hi there folks, how are we doing today? I hope you're well. We've been looking at the book of Nehemiah recently, and folks have been coming from all kinds of areas to come and build the walls of Jerusalem. And it's been great to see they've been making real progress, they're doing really well, they're on the right track. But there are problems along the way, and Nehemiah really is an honest account of everything that took place. And he doesn't shy away from the problems that happened along the way as well. We're not just talking about the obstacles of the big stones that had to be moved. There were that, but there was more than that. There were real problems, and they were very painful for those involved. And that's what real life is like. It's not always plain sailing. And so we're going to be looking at that today in Nehemiah.
Hi, I'm just sitting here out by the fire in the back garden, and we're going to do the reading for today, which is Nehemiah chapter 4. Yes, chapter 4. And we're reading from verse 6 to verse 15. At last, the wall was completed to half its height around the entire city, for the people had worked with enthusiasm. But when the Sanballat and the Tobiah and the Arabs, Ammonites and Ashdodites heard that the work was going ahead and that the gaps in the wall of Jerusalem were being repaired, they were furious. They all made plans to come and fight against Jerusalem and throw us into confusion. But we prayed to our God and guarded the city day and night to protect ourselves. Then the people of Judah began to complain. The workers are getting tired, and there is so much rubble to be moved. We will never be able to build the wall by ourselves. Meanwhile, our enemies were saying, before they know what's happening, we will swoop down on them and kill them and end their work. The Jews who lived near the enemy came and told us again and again they will come from all directions and attack us. So I placed armed guards behind the lowest parts of the wall in the exposed areas. I stationed the people to stand guard by families, armed with swords, spears and bows. Then, as I looked over the situation, I called together the nobles and the rest of the people and said to them, don't be afraid of the enemy. Remember the Lord, who is great and glorious, and fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives and your homes. When our enemies heard that we knew of their plans and that God had frustrated them, we all returned to our work on the wall. There's the wee fire.
So Nehemiah does record problems along the way in the rebuilding of the wall. And there are three major problems that are going on. There's problems from outside the community, there's problems within their community, and there's issues within each one of them as well, really in their minds and in their hearts. But we'll come to that a bit later. First of all, the problems from outside the community. And those really started early on in Nehemiah. In fact, in chapter 2, when Nehemiah is speaking with the king, he was cupbearer to the king of Persia. And when he speaks to the king and gets permission and help to go back to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, right from the off in chapter 2, verse 10, we read, when Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite official heard about this, they were very much disturbed that someone had come to promote the welfare of the Israelites. And it really started there. They were irked, they were perturbed, they had their noses out of joint, they didn't like what was happening. And it started off just from that. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation, maybe in a family setting with your immediate family, maybe it's the wider family, where something isn't right, there's a strained relationship there, and you can tell. Someone's nose is out of joint, maybe it's just as simple as that, maybe it's more serious, but there's something not right. You find it in workplaces as well, you can just tell something isn't right, or with a neighbour, or a friend, something like that. And it's starting off there beneath the surface. Well, as we find in Nehemiah, this grows and grows and grows, and it gets more and more serious as it goes on. It's not just a grumbling appendix away in the background, although strained relationships can feel like that. Here it certainly gets worse. When the folks say in chapter 2, yeah, let's all start rebuilding, let's all get involved. In verse 19 we're told, but Sanballat, Tobiah and Geshem, when they heard about it, they mocked and ridiculed us. What is this you're doing, they said. So it spills over now, it's into kind of mocking and ridicule as well between themselves and towards the Israelites, and that's not good. Chapter 4, we read at the beginning that when they heard that they were rebuilding the wall, we're told that Sanballat became angry and he was greatly incensed. So now it's anger that's being shown. And he ridicules the Jews in the presence of others as a group now, and they're all getting involved, and they begin these put downs and these insults along the way. And we're told when they got to half the height of the wall, in chapter 4, verse 6, we're then told that Sanballat, Tobiah, and others as well there, were told that they became very angry and started to plot and to scheme and to fight against and to stir up trouble. And sometimes you do find that in life, that things escalate and it gets worse and worse and worse. You might have been in the receiving end of that. I should say, if you're indulging in this behaviour, if you're actually the cause of it, then you absolutely must not be doing that. It is wrong and it's sinful and it's not loving towards others. It absolutely should not be happening. But if you're on the receiving end of it, it is very troubling indeed. In fact, it was troubling for the folks here. We're told that they became fearful in chapter 4, verse 12, for example, when the Jews who lived near them came and told us 10 times over, wherever you turn, they will attack us. They felt under attack and they were fearful, and their strength was giving out because of that. Well, it absolutely had to be dealt with, there's no doubt about that. One thing is, of course, that they never stooped down to the level of those who were indulging in this behaviour. We read in God's word this in Romans chapter 12. Do not take revenge, my friends, but leave room for God's wrath, for it is written, it is mine to avenge, I will repay, says the Lord. And therefore we have this assurance. It says, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Nehemiah and the people never stooped down to the level of these other folks. They never got involved in counter scheming, counter insults, all that kind of thing. They kept themselves right, and that is so, so important. And therefore what they did was they turned to God. And we know that they turned to God because we're told so, for example, in chapter 6. In verse 9 we read, they were all trying to frighten us, thinking their hands will get too weak for the work. It'll not be completed. They were trying to grind down the people with the insults and with the plots and the schemes and the attacks. And we're told, but I prayed, now strengthen my hands. Nehemiah turned to God in prayer. We read about this in chapter 4 as well, in verses 7 to 9. And we're told that these plotters and schemers, these ridicules, were becoming very angry. They all plotted together to come and fight against Jerusalem and stir up trouble against it. But we prayed to our God. But we prayed, and that was the response. It was trusting in God's sovereignty, His love, His faithfulness, God being a hiding place as well. They had each other to build each other up as well. That's so important. We need a community of good people round about us to support each other as well. But it went further because they took action. There was prayer and there was community, but there was action as well, because this behaviour has to stop, and it always has to stop. Reminds me of a story I once heard of Dwight L. Moody coming by ship to conduct a mission in Britain. And one of his followers informed him that the ship was on fire and inquired as to whether they should pray about it. And Dwight L. Moody replied, aye lad, as we're passing the fire buckets. So yes, pray. But sometimes we need prayer plus action, and that's exactly what happened here. It was tough, but they had God, they had each other, they took action, they ensured that this behaviour stopped, and they protected themselves, which was so important. It was tough, but they got through it. But it's how they got through it that was so important as well. So many lessons for us to learn here. Well, whatever challenges you're facing in life, I pray that you know the Lord's help and his strength and his grace and his mercy, and may you know his peace today and forevermore. Amen.